Last week we broke the barbecue rules and did reverse wrapped ribs in order to try to get more smoke flavor on the pellet grill, the Weber Searwood. It turned out beautiful.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
They were excellent, amazing ribs. A lot of you reached out and said, we need to see this with brisket. I had the same thought, so we're gonna give that a shot today. The point of brisket is cooking that collagen and turning it into gelatin, low and slow over a long period of time. We're gonna try to cook it fast and then smoke boost it on that Weber Searwood. I'm very skeptical. We might end up with a tough piece of meat. I'm willing to ruin a piece of brisket so you don't have to. Let's give it a shot. It should be fun.
Basement.
All right, we got our 17.2 pound brisket here from Costco. I'm gonna trim it up. Now, I don't have a lot of patience to spend an hour trimming this thing to perfection. Get rid of some of this fat here on the end that we don't wanna wait to render. I'll probably keep this fat so that I can render it separately to create tallow. If we weren't doing this crazy reverse wrap, I might use that tallow for this actual brisket, but we're not gonna get a chance to do that. We do want it to be a bit aerodynamic because we don't want any pools to collect once we get this on the smoker. The bark won't form in those areas where it pools. But again, I'm not gonna spend too much time on it because I don't have the patience, and my wife can attest to that. Get rid of some of the silver skin on the top here. A good boning knife makes this so much easier. I'll link to this one in case you're interested in it. Very good price on Amazon. It's not $100 or anything. All right, let's flip it. All right, that's all I got the patience for. As long as we keep it somewhat aerodynamic so that there's not gonna be any pooling over here. So we probably pulled a good 2.5 pounds. So this is gonna be closer to 15 pounds now. We're going salt and pepper only. No fancy barbecue, not even garlic. Even though I like garlic, I love salt and pepper brisket, so that's what we're doing. We have the Diamond Crystal Kosher Salt Flakes. Less salty, so you can get more coverage on the meat. You can basically cover the entire surface of the meat with salt without over salting. One of our viewers made that suggestion to us. 16 mesh, coarse black pepper, Costco, Kirkland brand, perfect. The dogs are excited because they know they're gonna get some of these trimmings. We want a really nice bark by the time this thing's rendered. Of course, this is gonna go in a wrap to begin with, so I'm not exactly sure how the bark is gonna form. All right, that looks good. Now you'll notice that I'm not using any binder, just like last week when we did the reverse wrap ribs. If we put a binder on here, since we're wrapping it first, those juices are gonna cook inside the wrap. And if we used mustard or something else, I think that would affect the flavor. So now we're just gonna stick this guy in a pan. So I'm gonna cover it with saran wrap. We're gonna stick it in the fridge 12 hours. I'm gonna start early in the morning because I honestly have no idea how long this is gonna take. Should be interesting. See you in the morning. Good morning, 12 hours later, and now it is time to do the crazy thing and wrap it in the very beginning. Worst case scenario, if it's not edible as a traditional barbecue brisket, we can always use it for chili or stew or soup. And yes, for this cook, I'm gonna wrap in foil to get it up to temp. Sometimes I would use butcher paper, especially if I'm gonna wrap during the stall, but that's a completely different cook, obviously. I don't care about breathing up front, I just wanna get it up to temp. And now I am gonna add some beef stock to this. I'm going with unsalted because I don't wanna oversalt my meat. I already seasoned it overnight in salt and pepper. This is really just to help steam the meat and get it up to temp. And I'm doing just about 1/3 of this carton. And now we're gonna close it up. All right, she's all wrapped up and ready to go. Let's go get that grill fired up. I'm nervous and excited all at the same time. Hopefully it turns out nice. See you out there. All right, here we are at the Weber Searwood. It's got Error E21 on it, which is perfect. That means that it's low fuel. I do not need to dump the hopper. We're gonna go a mix of hickory and smoking pecan when we're ready to unwrap the brisket and apply smoke to it. But for now, because the smoking pecan is a premium pellet, I'm just gonna stick the hickory in there. Let's fire this baby up to 300. And once it hits temp, we're gonna stick that brisket on there and go from there. All right, we're just about at 300 degrees, so it's time to get this puppy on. Now, I am going to ThermoPro TempSpike this from the very beginning because last week when I did the ribs, I neglected to do that. I don't know how long it's gonna take us to get up to between 190 and 200 degrees because I've never done anything close to this before, and brisket tends to take a long time. So to make sure I know that I'm taking it off at the right time, I'm gonna TempSpike it, as I said. So we'll just do one right here in the point area, and we'll do one over here in the flat. And again, those are gonna get both the meat temperature and the ambient. Now, the reason I'm going to 185 to 200 degrees, somewhere around there, is because that's the area where the brisket collagen breaks down. And when we do this on smoke boost later for the remainder of the cook, the temperature of the meat is actually gonna go down over time because we're only gonna be smoking it at about 160 degrees thanks to the water pans that will be in there that I used last week. And there we have it, we're off and running. We'll check on the temp on this thing in about an hour and see what does it look like. See you then. All right, we're an hour and 15 minutes in. The white probe, which is in the flat, is probing at 117 degrees. It started at 40, so we've had a pretty good rise in temperature. Surprisingly, sort of, is that the black probe, which is in the point, is at 81 degrees. So there's a good 36 degree difference between the flat and the point. I should have mentioned earlier that I'm actually doing fat cap down during the wrap phase because I don't want to overcook the meat if that's face down towards the flame. Later, when we unwrap it, we're going to flip it and do fat cap up so that that fat melts into the meat. And of course, as I've said 100 times, we'll have the water pans blocking the heat. So here you can see we're now at 120 degrees on the flat and 82 degrees on the point. All right, so we're gonna give this a while, probably another hour and a half, and check on it again. We'll see you in a bit. All right, 3 hours in and it's time to unwrap. I've been monitoring the temps with the ThermoPro TempSpike the whole time. The flat got up to 195 degrees within this 3 hour period, and the point got up to 150 degrees. So a 45 degree variance between the point and the flat. One thing to consider when it comes to brisket, when you cook it very fast, very quickly, you can turn that collagen instead into tough meat. So we're gonna pull it now, even though the point hasn't gotten up to temp. We're gonna put it over those water pans. The point's gonna come up to at least 150, 160, 180, hopefully. Whereas the flat, because it's already so high, is gonna start to come down in temperature. They'll equalize over time. Hopefully we don't end up with a very tough flat. With the point, we can always chop it up into cubes and make burnt ends. So I was skeptical to begin with for these reasons that I'm experiencing now. We're gonna let this thing go at 180 degrees, smoke boost. Whew, hot, hot, hot. Look at all that juice coming out. We'll hose down the deck if we need to. You can see the fat there. Obviously there's no bark. You can see we're gonna get pooling here. All right, we're off and running. If anything, this might be a video on what not to do with brisket. Reverse wrap may work for the ribs, but the brisket may be a big fail. See you in a bit. All right, 5.5 hours into the total cook, 2.5 since going on smoke boost and unwrapping, struggling to create any kind of bark. The internal temps have equalized and they've gone down significantly as expected. The point is actually at 145 degrees internal. The flat has come all the way down to 131 degrees. Just feeling it, it doesn't feel tender. Probing it doesn't feel tender in the flat. The point does probe tender, but still not done. I have a bad feeling about this. You never know, after many, many hours on smoke boost, what happens to this guy. This is something new. See you in a bit. 16 hours in, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I've fallen asleep several times during this process, but it's finally probing tender. Just like with doing the ribs last week, this doesn't actually reduce your overall cook time because you still have to get it back up to temp in the smoke in order for it to finally probe tender, which it is doing all the way through now, including on the flat. But you can see here, this is not the kind of bark that you would typically want, but hopefully at least the smoke flavor that we're after is there. I must say it is very tender, cuts basically like butter, which is a good thing. And now let's open this guy up. It looks decent. It's not exactly what I'm used to be honest, but it's definitely still juicy. It smells pretty good. Again, unfortunately, doesn't have the kind of bark that we would expect. And in fact, the skin is more like a crisped skin than it is a bark. Cutting a slice is not gonna be super easy. Yeah, it slices through like butter on the top, but on the bottom, the crust prevents it from slicing easily, as you can see there. So definitely not ideal. There it is. I can pick it up and it is kind of falling apart. Let's give it a taste and see what's up. Cheers. It's tender and flavorful, but not as flavorful as I would expect in a traditional brisket smoke where you smoke it from the beginning to end, or even do the wrap only at the stall. And in fact, I would say having it inside of that foil from the beginning has washed away a lot of the salt. I would want to salt this even more. I was worried about over salting it. I shouldn't have worried about that because this needs more salt at this point. All right, let's give this point a shot. I don't have time to turn this into burnt ends at this point. I need to go to sleep. It's 2 in the morning. Tender, but again, not as flavorful as I would expect with a regular brisket. Now the big question is, what about the smokiness, which was the entire reason we did this, was to try to apply more smoke to a brisket using a pellet smoker to try to recreate that offset or stick burner flavor with real wood. It didn't do it. Unfortunately, I can't think of any reason to do this reverse wrap with a brisket. We're gonna turn this probably into sandwiches, chili, that kind of a thing. But I would not do this if you want traditional slice and eat brisket, which is what I'm looking for typically. The reverse wrap method, great alternate method for ribs when you're using a pellet grill, but it does not work for brisket. So I wouldn't recommend this. It was worth a shot. I'm still gonna put this to good use. I'm going to bed. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.